Hey Oboists, it's Matt. I have a video here about how to select a piece of cane from the tube and prepare it to gouge. There are a few tools you're going to need. First off, you're going to definitely need your tube cane. Second, I like to use a razor blade to do this, to actually cut the tube out. You can use various types of cane splitters, but I find the razor blade, frankly, easiest and does the best job for me. You're going to need some radius gauges of various sizes, a guillotine, and some sort of, this is called a filiere or a planer to prepare the cane to go into a gouger. Our goal in this stage of cane preparation is to get a piece of cane to have a nice flat top, find a piece that is straight along the bark, straight along this dimension, and that has the proper radius to fit into your gouging machine. Most oboists use radius between 9.5 millimeters and 11 millimeters. I tend to stick between 10 and say 10.75, and I'll show you how to measure that in just a minute. So the first thing to do is to select your tube cane like we did in the previous video. This is a piece of tube cane that I think looks pretty good. And when I grab a piece of tube cane, I immediately look at it kind of as if you're sighting down a rifle. You want to kind of look down the length of the tube cane, and you know, no tube of cane is perfectly straight. You can see this one has a little bit of kind of a slight banana shape there. And what we don't want is for that concave banana shape to be in our cane. What is okay is for a slightly convex shape in our cane. If you can imagine, if the tube of cane was, if this is the bark and it was curved this way, when you fold that piece of cane, you're going to get very loose sides to your reed, and that's no good. A little bit of the opposite is fine. So I honestly just do that by eye. I look at it here. I found that this surface looks pretty good, that along here was pretty straight. So then I look, and I do this by eye as well. I look at an area in there that looks like it's fairly round, and then I double check on a radius gauge. I'll talk about these different radius gauges in just a second. When I do this, I find it helpful to have a shiny or white background so that I can see light through in between the cane and the metal of the radius gauge. And then to cut the piece of cane out, and watch this very carefully, I'm not pressing here with the razor blade. I just set it there. I'm going to select a piece from about there till about there. The exact width of the area of the circle that you choose isn't super important. It should be big enough, you know, wide enough that it's going to fit on your shaper tip when you're ready to shape, but not so wide that it cracks in the guillotine when you chop it. So I want to select about here to about there, and I'm going to put this here, remove my left hand because I do not want to slice into my hand with this razor blade, push just enough to get it started, and then just for balance, I'll hold it here and finish the cut, okay? Now I can see where I cut. Can I see where I cut? Sure, right there, okay? So now I will rotate the tube, place my razor blade, remove my hand gently, push it through, and finish the cut. And now I've got a piece out of the tube. And as you can see, this piece is not bowed in the incorrect direction. If it was in the incorrect direction, it would be going like this. this piece of cane is actually going a little bit like this, so that's good for me. This section looks fairly straight, kind of like railroad tracks. And again, what I'm checking for with the radius gauge is that the cane cannot be bigger than the radius gauge. Here's a good example. In this instance, this is the radius gauge, this is the cane. This little half moon here would be light. This is when the radius of the cane is too large for your radius gauge. And if this is an 11 millimeter radius gauge, that's going to be too big for your bed of your gouge, most likely. Different radius gauges, some have different measurements. Here's a Harvard Double Reeds tool that has various different measurements on it. I just find this a little bit heavy and hard to use, so I tend to stick with these. I call these ducks. My undergrad oboe teacher, Richard Kilmer, called them ducks because they kind of look like a duck. This is 7/32 of an inch, which it's not important to know, but is very, very close to 11 millimeters. This surface is 11 millimeters. This is 11 millimeters inverted. And this is the surface I use. Nice little curve, 11 millimeters. And again, I hold it to the light and check, okay? So what we're looking for at that stage is, again, that it's not too big, but that it fits nicely within the radius gauge. And importantly, we want the cane to be circular throughout the entire curve of the cane. You may look at this drawing and say, well, that looks fine. But actually, these edges of the cane here, I purposely drew straight. So it sits in the bottom of the radius gauge like we want it, but the edges are not good. The way I test for that is I put the cane centered, and I run it along the length and check it, and then I actually turn the cane and check the sides too. Turn it and check the sides. I find that really helpful, and I've been getting really good results doing it that way. Okay, so now I have a piece of cane ready to chop in the guillotine. That step is fairly easy. You open the guillotine, put the end of the cane you don't want, I don't want this end, put it through there, and put the good end of the cane up against the cane stop there, and then just with a nice firm motion, chop it, okay? If you are finding that your cane is then splitting here down the middle, that could be a few things. Probably what it is that you took too wide of a cut with your razor blade. So try just a slightly narrower piece of cane with the razor blade. Once you've got your guillotine piece of cane, you can set it in the bed of your planer and push it through. There are different types of planers too. This one works fine for me, so that's the one I use. And now this piece is ready to gouge. Here's another piece that I prepared earlier. And again, I'm just finding that I want this part of the cane. This part kind of trails off that way a little bit, so might as well cut that part off. And again, boom, cut it off, push it through. I find it helpful to hold down the cane as I'm starting the pass, or starting the push, and then just push it through. One more safety note. After you've planed or pushed through a piece of cane, be very careful how you grab it. Grab it like this and gently pull it out. I have been cut before by these sharp edges of cane. So if you've just pushed, well, I'll do this one. This one needs to be pre-gouged. If you've just pushed your cane through, don't grab it here. Okay, those can be extremely sharp edges. Grab it there and pull it out, okay? If you do this step very meticulously, your reeds will improve. I'm remembering a quote, I believe it was Dan Ross, who said, the more cane you throw away, the better your reeds will be. And I've definitely found that to be true. I'll even double check pieces of cane after I soak them before I gouge them, and sometimes I think, oh, I wasn't fussy enough about that piece, so I'm not going to gouge that piece. So yeah, I tend to throw away quite a bit of cane, and my reeds have improved because of it. So I hope that was helpful. If you have questions or comments, feel free to let me know, and I hope you all make great reeds today. Bye.